Even considered a marginal and discredited activity in the 20th century, astrology still continued to seduce the rulers. In Brazil, it is known that Getulio Vargas was a client of Demetrio de Toledo, who had been Brazilian consul in Paris and studied with the astrologer Dom Nariman. Author of the book Astrologia, published in 1943, he trained and taught astrologers, in addition to teaching a correspondence course in astrology and editing the journal Sombre y Luz, between 1934 and 1937. In Argentina, the astrologer Lopez Rega, of sad memory, was Perón's private secretary and even became Minister of State. José Lopez Rega, Argentine astrologer, was born on October 17, 1916 and died on June 9, 1989 in Buenos Aires. Author of a voluminous book entitled Esoteric Astrology, he was private secretary to the dictator Perón during his last exile in Spain and returned to Argentina with him in 1973. One of his tasks in this role was to raise horoscopes to guide him in his decisions. He had a great influence on the old politician's return to power and was even promoted to the position of Minister of Social Welfare. His enemies called him the Argentine Rasputin and the press gave him the nickname El Brujo. Rega boasted the title of Doctor of Astrology, which his opponent said was false. In her book, Rega also spoke of a new era of spirituality that was approaching and that would soon change the fate of the world. In this new time, all men would recognize Perón as guide and enlightened. He claimed to fulfill the difficult mission of revealing the zodiacal secrets, in his relationship with the human race and other lower realms. And he announced the secret of the next 6 books, exploring the dark realms of the occult with works like Genesis of the New Age, Man, An Unknown World, and Spiritual Insights. Before becoming Perón's secretary, Rega had already joined the Anil sect, where he was known as Brother Daniel. This sect was a strange mix of Rosicrucian, Umbanda and elements of the Thule Nazi sect. This Perón met Rega in Panama, while making a pilgrimage to several Latin American countries after being overthrown in 1955 by a military coup. It was the astrologer who introduced him to Isabella Maria Estela Martinez, a singer and cabaret dancer 30 years younger than Perón. Isabella became the president's secretary until she married Perón in Madrid in 1961. The astrologer's influence on the couple was very great. Perón attracted a heterogeneous group of followers, ranging from well-meaning young leftists to criminals and far-right murderers. In addition to becoming a minister, Rega also held the position of commissioner of police, posts that gave him very broad power. It was thanks to her behind-the-scenes work that Isabella was nominated for the vice presidency, and when she became president in 1974 after her husband's death, her power increased even more, including coordinating all the secretariats under the presidency. In September 1974, Lopez Rega set up a cabinet composed of his main allies and put into practice a government project that resulted in a strange combination of ultra-right nationalism with hints of orthodox liberalism in domestic politics and a pro-Arab Third World profile, and anti-Semitic in foreign policy. In the spring of 1975, with inflation on the rise and prices out of control, under constant attack from the Peronist left, which denounced him as a fascist, Lopez Rega was accused by the Sierra's Peronist Congress of having instigated the creation of the Argentine Anti-Communist Alliance. This organization, also known as the AAA, was one of the first act. Rega dictated daily expulsion orders to deputies, actors, journalists and singers suspected of professing Jewish Marxism, eliminating enemies on the left. It is said that he walked at dawn through the gardens of the official residence of the presidency wearing the uniform of General de Perón. But his witchcraft did not prevent the military coup against Bira. In 1972, Rega's book was mercilessly criticized by journalist Pedro Leopoldo Barraza, in an edition of the newspaper La Opinion. Barraza, his treatise on astrology from the first to the last page, and published a devastating critique of the work and its author, whom he contemptuously christened with the nickname that would accompany him for the rest of his days, El Brujo. Rega felt affronted by this criticism and never forgave the journalist for it, but he waited more than 2 years to get revenge. Pedro Leopoldo Barraza was assassinated on October 13, 1974, in Villa Lugano, by a vigilante commando who shot him and, already dead, crushed his head. At that time, José Lopez Rega was the most powerful man in the government of Perón's widow and directed the terrorist actions of the AAA from his office at the Ministry of Social Security. On July 11, 75, he resigned and traveled to Spain shortly after he had been hastily appointed ambassador extraordinary by Isabel Perón. After she was overthrown by the military in 1976, Rega spent 10 years on the run from justice. In 1986 he was arrested in the United States and extradited to Argentina, where he died while awaiting trial.